Okay, now the market revolution and how did it change American society? Well, we discussed the embargo and the War of 1812, and we talked a little bit about the irony of the fact that the region that was most against the embargo and the War of 1812 was the region that was going to benefit most from, I just stuck my bald head in there, it was going to benefit most from those two events, because what it forced Northerners to do was make their own products. And now you're going to have the beginning of small-scale factories in the North. We're not talking about industrialization. We're talking more about, water wheel-driven factories. We're not talking about the Industrial Revolution. We're talking about a smaller-scale factory system, maybe a factory the size of 2 of the classrooms in this building, or a barn, or something along those lines. But it's still a factory system. So when we talk about revolutions, we're talking about some sort of change, and obviously this one's an economic change. It goes from, so what are the changes that take place? How would you describe the market revolution? Well, we go from a producer society, producer economic system, to a consumer economic system. People aren't going to make their own products anymore. People are going to go and buy it. It's cheaper and easier and higher quality to buy the product as opposed to producing it yourself. So that is going to break down the traditional economic system that had been created prior to this economic revolution. You go from a barter exchange to a money, or I guess what you could say, a capital exchange program. All right. People aren't going to trade goods anymore. They're going to trade money for goods. You're going to go from a more local economy to a national economy, a more commercial economy. And then you're going to go from the interdependence of the small local communities and economic communities to both independent and dependent. What I mean by that is you could own your own shop, but if you own your own shop, you hired workers, and if you hired workers, those workers were dependent upon you. So you have a dependency class now. And that's something we've talked about before too. What are you going to do with that dependent class? Are they going to be allowed to vote? And as they grow and grow and grow, the country is going to become actually less democratic if property is the qualification for voting. So one of the impacts of this is universal manhood suffrage, where everyone gets the right to vote regardless if they own property. So those are the changes that occur in the market revolution. These are dramatic changes that happen almost overnight historically. We're actually talking about a society that for 200 years, if you think about it, right, from 1607 at Jamestown to 1807 was a producer, barter exchange, local, interdependent economy for the most part. And now almost overnight you're having these dramatic economic changes that people are not used to and not, in a lot of ways, not ready for. So 200 years of American history is going to be changed in almost a blink of an eye historically, and in the lifetimes of some people. A person who was born, say, in 1790 and is, 22 and at the end of the War of 1812 is going to live in one economic society like this and grow old in an economic society like that. And that has a huge social and it has a huge economic impact, but a huge social impact on how people view America. And that's important for the rest of our studies. So what was the impact? Well, in the North, you're going to have rapid urbanization. You're going to have the growth of American cities for the first time. New York is one of them, right? The Erie Canal is making New York what it would become. Without the Erie Canal, who knows the shape of New York, but New York becomes a center of commerce as a result of the Erie Canal. You're going to have lower prices and higher quality for goods, and you're going to have the creation of a working class, a dependent class, people who are going to work and have to get up in the morning and go to someone else's employment. All right, they're going to have to go to someone else's factory, say. So they're no longer independent workmen. All right, and you have the erosion of the artisan system. The best example of that is a cobbler, right? Somebody who made shoes. So when you lived in a small town or village, you might go and you might get a shoe made by the cobbler. Well, now shoes can be made in a factory. They can be made at a faster speed, more of them. It's going to drive the price lower, and they're going to sell them in the same village store. So now the cobbler that everyone had depended upon and has no business, he's out of business. And the general store opens up and they're able to sell these shoes. Well, that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? The good thing is that you can get the shoes cheaper and quicker and they're higher quality. The bad thing is the cobbler's out of work. But not only is he out of work, he's out of his way of life. That was his way of life. Now he's out on the street. He's looking for a job. He might be trying to find some odd jobs. That has to have some sort of impact on you socially. All right, and that happened to a great number of people. Farmers are kicked off their farms because unless you're a commercial farmer, a huge commercial farm, you're not going to succeed in this new economic environment. Self-sufficient farming is just not going to work. Commercial farming is needed. So farmers are put out. So there's a whole group of people who are like disenchanted, maybe even disillusioned, but definitely disconnected from the society they had once been in. So remember, they went from here to here almost overnight, and it was dramatic, and in some sides catastrophic for them. And you have the rise of the middle class. In the South, you're going to have, with the invention of the cotton gin, the rise of what we know of the South. We've always thought of the South as the cotton kingdom, but it's not the cotton kingdom until the market revolution. Before that, it was not driven by cotton. The cotton gin allowed you to grow a cheaper form of cotton. And as a result, now everybody could grow cotton. And the cotton gin could be replicated and easily created and constructed. So anybody could build their own gin, and as a result, they could grow cotton and make a profit from it. All right? And this type of cotton, which is known as, it's just a different form of cotton. It's cheaper and easier to grow, and now it's available to everyone. So cotton explodes in the South, and everybody can be engaged in the production of cotton. Now, that only helps to reinforce slavery. Slavery is on the decline in the Upper South in the early 1800s. It's fallen apart. It's not economically viable. But now slavery becomes even more of an institution in the South because it becomes economically viable. But remember, most Southerners do not have slaves. They can't afford them. They're poor. There are slaves, but they are held in few hands, which is very important. Most do not have slaves. And so the slave system is reinforced. As a matter of fact, in Virginia and Maryland and Delaware, where cotton cannot be grown, the slaves are transported down into the South, sold into the Deep South, into Mississippi, Alabama. It opens up that old Southwest to settlement. And people move there and start growing cotton. And it just reinforces that paternalistic society in the South. So both North and South are impacted by this market revolution.